This is an extraordinary man with an extraordinary career in public service. Somebody who has devoted his entire professional life to service to this country. He could not have been a more effective partner in the progress that we've made. The best part is he's nowhere close to finish.
That's a Joe Biden campaign spot. Obviously, he is proud of his connection to President Obama. He's hoping to ride that all the way to the White House. So far, he's holding a commanding lead in the polls. Former Vice President surging by double digits since he announced. He's now sitting at 39%, that according to a new poll by CNN. Bernie Sanders, distant second, 15%. The rest of the field, they're all in single digits. And in a head-to-head matchup, for what it's worth, in early May, against President Trump, Biden, he'd win by 6 points. He has also scored some major endorsements of late, and we're going to have more than a third of Florida legislature right now supporting Biden, and also the country's largest firefighters union has thrown their support behind him as well. Joining me now, a man who knows Biden very well, Jared Bernstein. He's Biden's former chief economist. Now he's a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. And Jared, did he know he was going to do it this time around, that he was going to run in 20 a while ago, or did he struggle with this decision?
I think it's always a struggle, this kind of a decision, and obviously he's very, very close to his family, and that family has undergone more difficulty than any family should ever have to. There's always financial issues involved, but I think at the end of the day, none of us were that surprised.
Listen, I've argued the best thing for Biden is Donald Trump, in that there's a few boxes that help mitigate all the Me Too concerns that have come up for Biden. It looks like child's play compared to, the Stormy Daniels and the Access Hollywood tapes. And on the age issue, and he would be 78 if he were elected and sworn in office. Look at Trump. He's no spring chicken himself. To that end, how much does Trump help Biden almost more than any other Democrat?
Well, when I think about that question, really where I go is to the Electoral College and the importance of what the pollster Nate Silver calls the Northern Path. And this is the idea of winning key components of the electorate, pretty swing components who can go either way, in places like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. I think Joe Biden has, throughout his career, had a real affinity for blue-collar folks, for union folks, for the middle class, for people who have struggled economically with issues of globalization and parts of the country that haven't always been lifted by even strong economies like the current one. In many ways, that's probably where the key advantage lies.
I've heard that, Jared, but I struggle. I don't remember a more polarizing time. Either you love Trump and you wear the MAGA hat, or you hate the guy intensely. That some steel worker in Ohio is conflicted one way or the other, and that somehow will vote for Biden and not a Democrat against Trump. Isn't it by now everybody's picked shirts and skins?
I don't think so, but let me be clear. I'm an economist, not a pollster. What I think, though, from my more economic policy perspective, is that there is an important group of significant size, precisely in the places we're talking about, so key in the Electoral College, that threw the dice on Trump based on the hope that he would do what he said he was going to do, that he would actually really help people in places left behind. Instead, he's done the opposite. He's not helped those places much at all. Who he's really helped are the donor class of the Republican Party. And so a lot of those voters bought something that turned out to be troubled goods, and I think that's going to be a big part of Biden's pitch.
You've seen some of the numbers, even if you're not a pollster, and the president's underwater on just about everything other than the economy. There is a sense, by a pretty hefty, split here, Jared, that people think he's doing a good job in the economy. And I haven't even heard Democrats say, though there's always a caveat, but they'll at least acknowledge the economy is doing well. Barring a big downturn in the next 12 months, isn't that a net negative for any Democrat to run against saying, I'm going to make your economic a lot better?
no question it's a real challenge. If the economy is doing as well as it is now, if you sort of ran any traditional kind of analysis, you'd see a big advantage for the incumbent. But Trump is not a traditional incumbent. Think of the midterms. The economy was doing well then also, and it didn't help Republicans. Now, I grant you, the midterms are not the same as a general, but Trump does have a way of sort of taking the attention away from issues like the economy. That's one thing. Secondly, this is an economy that, no question, in a macro sense, is really strong. We just learned the unemployment rate at 3.6% in April. That's great news. But it's also an economy where lots of people and places have been left behind. And you can find places in the industrial Midwest where the unemployment rate is twice that of the national average. So that kind of disparity is very important as well.
Jared, I want to play a clip for you. Actually, it's two of them back to back. This is Biden as both the senator talking about William Barr and then as vice president talking about his predecessor, Dick Cheney. And I want to get your reaction on how you think this is going to play on the campaign trail.
It's a presumptuous thing for me to say, but I personally like you. I think you're a heck of an honorable guy. I think you're someone I can work with, and you've demonstrated that. When I say can work with, I don't mean you do it our way. I mean when you sit down and negotiate, you genuinely negotiate.
First of all, I actually like Dick Cheney for real. I get on with him. I think he's a decent man.
You know, Jared, one of the worst kept secrets was that Biden, far more than his boss, President Obama, he believed that you had to talk to the other side. And if there was negotiations to be done with Congress and the Obama administration, more often than not on major policy initiatives, it was Biden picking up the phone or going to the Hill and having conversations. That said, I don't know how that plays in 2019 or 20. And to that degree, with those bites that we played, and I understand context is important, but it doesn't matter in a 30-second spot, is that going to be a problem for Joe Biden where we are in American politics now?
Perhaps somewhat surprisingly, I don't think so. Because when you say where we are at in American politics right now, the first thing I think of is who's we. No question, there are a group of voters out there who kind of take a scorched earth policy and don't want to see anybody talking about negotiating. I'm not sure that's a majority of voters on either side. And in fact, you talked about being exhausted. One of the things that many of us, and I'll definitely put myself in this camp, are really exhausted about is just the absolute reluctance is too weak a word, just the abhorrence of actually dealing with somebody on the other side of the aisle in good faith. And it's just going to be extremely hard to move forward on anybody's priorities unless you're able to figure out some way to do some amount of negotiation. I will point out this, and I think it's important. When I worked for Joe Biden, when he was the vice president, for all of his negotiating skills and the other side's reluctance to work with us, we still managed to get a lot of stuff done. The Recovery Act, the Affordable Health Care Act, Dodd-Frank, and so the vice president does have a track record of working with intractable oppositions.
Jared, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Up next, the latest on Varsity Blues. We'll be joined by a college admissions expert who'll take a look at the scandal that just keeps on growing and growing. Will this whole mess change the way that colleges really operate? And could it actually cause all sorts of unintended consequences?